Today on Hands on Photography, we are taking a look at the world of video editing yet again. We're going from color correction to color grading. We're going to take a look at Premiere Pro. We're going to take a look at Vegas Pro. We're going to take a look at Davinci Resolve. And in particular, we're going to talk about log video footage. What the heck is that? What the heck is Rec 709? And what does it mean to you as a video creator? Y'all stay tuned.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Hands on Photography is brought to you by Nareva. Traditional audio conferencing systems can entail lots of components. Installation can take days, and you might not get the mic coverage you need. That's complex expensive. But Nareva Audio is easy to install and manage. No technicians required. And you get true full room coverage. That's easy economical. Learn more at nareva.com. Hey, what's happening, everybody? I am at Pruitt. This is Hands on Photography here on TWiT TV. Hope y'all are doing well. I am unbelievable as always. Folks, this week we're going to get back into our video editing, video post-processing module, if you will, and just continue that bit of education because, yes, photography is not just snapping stills, but it's also snapping a gazillion stills per second for video. So we're going to continue to talk about that and how we can help you level up your video recording and post-processing game. But before we get into that, allow me to take a few seconds to say hello and welcome to our brand new listeners out there. Welcome to you. Appreciate you hopping in. Do me a favor and subscribe in the podcast app you're enjoying this on. We're available on all of them, of course, because yes, we are TWiT, dadgummit. Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Apple Podcasts. Check us out on Google's platform, whatever it is. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yeah, we are on YouTube, so you can subscribe and watch our content there as well. At any rate, subscribe, share, and come back each and every week to see what we're talking about here on Hands on Photography. Or just go to the website too, twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/HOP for Hands on Photography. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode, folks. Okay. So we are going to continue on our path of video post-processing. We've talked about just the basics of getting into your video editor and walk through setting up different tracks and audio and all that good stuff and how you can mix in different clips and transitions and just a little bit of touch up with some of the color correcting process. Well, today we're going to go a little bit deeper regarding the color correcting process, but we're going to turn that into color grading. Okay. Color grading. Color grading is not the same as color correction. If you look back, color correction is basically making sure your footage looks the way it's supposed to look from a color standpoint. Your white balance has to be in check. The red should look like red. The blues should look like blues, so on and so forth. That's getting correct color for your footage. The color grading of it that's the more artistic and stylized side of things. And there's a couple ways you can go about doing it, but quite frankly, if your camera is capable of doing so, you want to shoot in a log format because that's going to offer your footage way more dynamic range, way more flexibility in post to not only get the correct color setting for your footage, but also really, really push the edge when it comes to grading that footage to make it look something way more artistic and cinematic, something that's fitting your eyes or something fitting for your client's eyes regarding style. So what I like to recommend is if you can shoot in log, do it. No, you're not going to be able to do so with your latest and greatest iPhone. Yes, they can shoot in ProRes, but that's not shooting in log. If you're someone that has headed over to lensrentals.com and rented the latest Sony camera or the latest Canon camera, those cameras do allow you to shoot in log, and it's going to be so much useful and so much more helpful when it comes to doing this stuff in post. But what is log? Let me break down what log is, and that's LOG when it comes to video footage. Log is a pretty dadgum flat image quality when you pull it up on the screen. It looks desaturated. It looks like it has no contrast whatsoever. It looks pretty dadgum bad. But from a technical standpoint, Log was developed basically looking at how film was developed back in the days. And this allowed the camera manufacturers to be able to get the maximum amount of data and capability out of their image sensors so you can put it into your projects. Now, there's a website that's, I believe it's hdvideopro.com. They have the full technical breakdown, the nerdy nitty gritty. I'll put a link to it in the show notes if you want to read through that, but I just wanted to simplify it. Think of Log as, it's not raw, but it's pretty similar in the standpoint as far as how you get different leeway to handle the dynamic range and really, really push the footage. You know, if I say I want to shoot raw with my photos, I get a raw image file from Canon or a raw image file from Sony or whatever, and put it in Lightroom or whatever photo editor of choice. I get so much more flexibility to really crank that exposure or bring that exposure back just in case I overexpose. Log is giving you that same type of capability. It is not raw. It's not raw video, but it's still pretty dadgum flexible. It's compressed, but it's really flexible when it comes to a data standpoint. But again, check out hdvideopro.com. Link is in the show notes, and you can read that long dissertation breaking down the differences between raw and log versus what you normally see on your screen, which is Rec 709. Okay. So that's the breakdown. What I want to do next is jump into the different editors. You know, again, we're working with Premiere Pro, we're working with Vegas Pro, and we're also working with Davinci Resolve. All three of those apps, they handle log footage fairly well. They handle it differently, but they handle it fairly well. My favorite of the bunch would probably be Davinci Resolve because of the extra capabilities with grading built into it. I mean, that's what that app is designed to do, but we'll get to that lastly in this. But let me walk you through checking out Premiere Pro and Vegas Pro and then Davinci Resolve. But before I want to do that, I want to take a few minutes and thank the fine folks at Nareva. Yes, complicated and costly. Yeah, it's been the state of audio conferencing for larger spaces for a long time, y'all. Choosing a traditional system might entail difficult design software and selecting from a dizzying array of separate mics and speakers and DSP and a whole lot of other gear and tech needed just for audio conferencing. Installation usually requires outside techs and is often pretty daggum invasive and expensive, let alone it's costing you a whole lot of money. Your room can be offline for quite a while because they're in there doing this massive installation. The industry has definitely been primed for the same type of leap in tech that has transformed a lot of the different things in the tech industry and simplified it. So Nareva steps in and says, you know what? We got you covered. So they created the revolutionary microphone mist technology. With this patented tech, 1 or 2 integrated microphones and speakers, they can fill a room with virtual microphones, thousands of them. So there's no dead zones and everybody that's in the room can be heard and they can hear everybody else coming in through that virtual speaker. It's pretty daggone cool. Meeting and class participants can simply talk and move naturally into space and still be heard by the remote participants. Thanks to the continuous auto calibration, your rooms are instantly and always ready with optimized audio. No outside techs required, y'all. That's good stuff. Nareva has simplified installation with its 30-minute DIY process. It doesn't take that long at all. So that means you get big savings on your time and you get big savings on the cost versus the traditional systems that are out there. They've simplified the management for the IT department. Yeah, Nareva's console gives IT the power to monitor and manage and adjust the systems from anywhere. There's no need for IT to be running around like the chicken with their head cut off from room to room, trying to make sure everybody's conferencing system sounds pretty good. They can do it remotely, and they're not worrying about a bunch of cables all over the floor and people tripping over them and pulling them out the wall. It's so much easier with the Nareva console. So ask yourself if you want to go with the costly and complicated traditional system or make the leap to simple and economical Nareva. Folks, learn more at nareva.com. That's NUREVA.com. And I appreciate Nareva for their support of the show. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the wonderful world of Vegas Pro. So I'm going to switch my screen right here. There we go. So right now I am inside of Vegas Pro, and I have opened up a separate scope here on the screen. This is called my RGB parade. And I have two clips here. This is clip 1 and this is clip 2. And I'm going to try to show you, as quick as I can and efficiently as I can, the process here. So right now, this piece of footage here was shot on a Sony camera, and I shot it in S-Log3, which is Sony's log format, and pulled it in here. And as you're looking at this video, it's pretty flat. It sort of looks like there's no contrast, and it almost looks like it has a bit of a haze on top of it, like it's sort of faded out. That's totally normal when you're looking at log footage. And what I did now is I took my playhead and I parked it on a scene where my hero is sort of standing out, and it's going to allow me to get a better judgment on what this piece of footage should look like from a color standpoint. So first thing I want to do is to go down here, like right now, that's set to none. Go down here inside of Vegas, and it's got this input LUT. Boy, I think I could talk today. So let me take myself off the screen where you can see what I'm talking about here. There we go. Right here at the bottom, you have this input LUT. Okay. Well, what is an input LUT? An input LUT is short for input lookup table. And I've spoken about LUTs in the past from the photography side of thing. And it's basically like putting a filter on top of your image. Well, an input LUT is something that's designed specifically for the camera that shot the footage. And Sony has a bunch of different input LUTs. Canon does, Blackmagic does, pretty much all of them out there, even Panasonic, because, they shoot in Vlog. There's an input LUT out there for pretty much whatever camera that you're using that specializes in shooting video, not just cine cameras, but it could be some DSLRs that, as long as they shoot log. And so that input LUT will be imported into your computer's software, and it's going to basically translate that log footage and help convert it to Rec 709. Okay. If you look up here in my subject, in my file name, I wrote on here Rec 709. Question: what is Rec 709? In simplest terms, Rec 709 is the standard that is set in place that allows us to view our images on our HD screens and higher. Rec 709, recommendation 709. It deals with the color and luminosity and how things are supposed to look when viewed on an HD screen. That's the simplest way I can explain that. Okay. All right. Now back to Vegas Pro. All right. So I'm in Vegas Pro, and I want to put a LUT on here, input LUT, that is going to be best suited for the Sony camera. And again, it says S-Log3 to Rec 709. That is what's designed for the Sony cameras. Now, as I click that, you should notice just a slight change to the footage here. There we go. See, at first it was a little bit washed out and sort of, hazy looking. Now this actually has some color. The shirt is blue. There's gray there. His skin tones came out, and it could use a little bit more contrast, but this is ready for viewing on an HD TV, Rec 709. So now if I want to continue on with post-processing and color grading, color correcting on this, I can. So I'll just hit these little color wheels here, And, I could play around with the offset and raise up the exposure and all of that good stuff. And it's really, really easy to do. Now you notice these color wheels on the bottom. One says lift, one says gamma, one says gain. Think of these as your lift is your shadows, gamma is your mid-range, gain is your highlights, and the offset is a bit of a global view. And you can adjust all of these different parameters and take a look at your scopes on the screen to really dial in the look that you're trying to get regarding your final image. So I'm going to push the highlights down just a touch on here, like so. Take the shadows, pull those down, because I want to get some black levels in there, not too much. There we go. And then I'm going to take the gain, gamma, and pull it up a little more, that mid-tone, something like that. And you can just play around with that particular frame to get your color correction started. Now, next up, there's more when it comes to using this type of footage, and you can really get creative, and that's the color grading side of things. So over here, there's another tab called Look LUT right there. Okay, Look LUT. So we're going to click on that, and there's a lot of different LUTs in here that you can play with. So I just set it to none, just so we can play around with it. But there's a lot of different LUTs that you can play with that's going to give you an additional stylized look for your footage. There's one that I've played with in the past that I enjoyed for pretty much any type of camera that I've shot with. And there's this LUT that I've downloaded from a gentleman on YouTube. I am blanking on his name, but I'll put his information in the show notes. I believe his name is Armando, but it's called Mondo Bites. And I just click on that, and it gives you a whole different look for the footage. Notice it sort of made the blues a little bit more electric, and you have just a slight green tint to the footage. And depending on your scene, it works pretty good. And you can really play around with the strength of this. If I want to dial it all the way back, I can. But I like to pull it up and just sort of make it work with this particular scene. So that's playing around with color grading regarding log footage inside of Vegas Pro. Again, you get your input LUT to get your log footage from log to Rec 709, do your color correcting, and then throw on a creative LUT or a look LUT to really make it pop. So now I'm going to minimize that, and we're going to hop on into, say, Premiere Pro. So let's minimize that. Let's go to Premiere Pro and switch my screen. Here we go. So we have the same footage here, or it's two different files. Okay, so again, same footage, same concept. One shot with the Sony. This first piece of footage is actually shot with my Blackmagic camera here. So let's play around with that one. All right. So looking at our scopes here, notice that the scopes are, all of the data is sort of bunched into the middle. That is a clear indication that this is log footage. It's not really going up and down the meters here in your scopes from the RGB parade. So let's go to our input LUTs over here inside the Lumetri color panel. Input LUT. I'm shooting with a Blackmagic 6K. And I have some LUTs that I downloaded called Lehman LUTs right here. And they work perfectly for the Blackmagic. And I had to learn to shoot it in an overexposed format. That's why it looks really bright on the screen. But watch when I put this LUT on, this input LUT. Boom. Look at that. Just easy to work with. And notice the scopes over here. Everything just, it's got so much more data that it's showing that you have a lot of data that you can play with, and you have a lot of flexibility. That's just getting it to Rec 709. And again, I can continue to dial in the exposure to my liking. I can turn it down just a touch, play around with the highlights, so on and so forth. Shadows. And that looks pretty good. Okay. Just from the get-go. Now I want to get into the creative side of things. And again, there's this tab inside of your Lumetri color panel for you that are using Premiere Pro. And you can just jump through the different types of creative LUTs that you may have installed. I have a ton of them. because I've been playing around with this stuff for years. And there's a lot of free ones out there online. There's a lot of that you pay for. These layman ones I've paid for, and they're really, really cool. This Mondo Bytes again from Armando. Let's click on that and see how that looks. And again, it just sort of changes it up, gives it more of a green overlay, and it really does sort of mess around with the blues here in the scene, even down to the sky. Something that you can just sort of stylize, you know, and I can take the intensity and roll it back some if I want, so it's not too much, and play around with the vibrance and everything else, and just really make it work for me. Premiere does a really good job of sort of making this process very, very simple and putting everything right there in one particular panel. Now, I love Premiere, but man, Davinci Resolve, what they're doing with color, whew, that is something else. So let me quickly hop on over into Davinci Resolve. So I am inside of Resolve. Again, the same 2 different files here. This time I'm going to show you both of them. So let's go back to this one here with him at the football field. If I can move my playhead there. There we go. All right, so this is him at the football field. And I'm going to go into the color tab inside of Resolve because it really does a good job of breaking things out. And again, I have all of these color wheels and so forth. And remember, I shot this particular piece of footage with a Blackmagic camera. And Resolve is going to use a node structure, as you can see over here. And this little doohickey right here on the left of this panel, this is basically your input. This over here is your output. So that everything is going to flow from input to output. Okay, that's how you need to think about it. And you can have these nodes and use these nodes as layers while you're working on your color correcting and color grading process. So what I like to do is I like to add a couple of nodes, and it's a couple of keyboard shortcuts. You know, you can just Shift S, well, Control S and Alt S. Well, no, it's Alt S. I'm sorry, Alt S in here. So I'm going to add a couple of nodes. So this is one serial node, and you know, I'll just add this one. Yeah, I'll do two more. All right. So for this one, I'm going to put basically the input LUT information on it so I can get everything to Rec 709. So I'm going to click on this effects tab up here, and I saved a bunch of these different effects. I went ahead and made them my favorites. And there's one in here in particular called Color Space Transform. And what does that mean? Color Space Transform is taking your camera's information, your log information, and setting it to Rec 709. So I'm just going to drag that effect onto that node. And you notice you get all of these different parameters. You have your input color space, which I already know is going to be Rec 709. Your input gamma, which is going to be my camera, a Blackmagic Design Pocket 6K, shot it with film. There we go. Film Gen 5, like that. And it's already making a change to the scene. And then the output color space, I'm going to scroll it down. It's going to be Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. Okay. So it already made a huge difference just from adding the Rec 709 color space to this. Okay. So if I was to turn this off, this is the, whoops, wrong keystroke. If I was to turn this node off, this is the before, and this is after adding the Rec 709 color space transform. But unfortunately, y'all, this thing is super overexposed. I mean, this is really, really bright. If I look at my scopes, look at everything just sort of clipping at the top here. Okay, that's not good. But as I said previously, I shoot overexposed because I know I'm going to be using the Leeming LUTs. And the Leeming LUTs that I have, they are perfect for getting everything sort of back into balance, because sometimes you really need to try to get as much light as you can. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just right click on this one and say LUT, and I'm going to look for my Leeming LUTs, and I got a bunch to choose from. So I have this Pocket 6K Gen 5 film. Boom. Oh, that looks so much better right out the gate. I could probably move this a little more so I can get better focus on my hero shot here. Yeah, that's much better. And now I can really start to play around with the balancing and color correcting and grading. Yes, this is still just a touch overexposed, but I can fix that. So let's just go over here to the offset, go to my very first node, offset, pull that back a little bit, get that exposure down, and so it's not clipping like so. Take these highlights, pull them down some, raise up my shadows just a little bit. There we go. Much better. Let's just push and pull, getting everything squared away from a balancing color correction standpoint. All right, if I play through it a little more, it should look okay. Yep, so far so good. But now let's give this a bit of a creative look. So let's add another node here. So I'm going to do Alt S to add another node, and we can put our creative LUT on here. So we go to LUTs again, go to Mondo Bytes, boom. That looks pretty daggum cool. But again, inside of Resolve, you can play around with this stuff even more. You have these color wheels and you can just sort of dial things in. If you want to make it more warmer, like so, you can do that. Pull the offset down a little bit. Something like that. If you want to make the shadows more in that blue hue, you can. Just really play around and have some fun with the color grading side of things. I'm going to take that back. And then if I want to take a look at the skin, I'll just go to my little vector scope here, put this over his skin, and hopefully that shows up on the skin line. And it does. See? So that lets me know everything is really good with the colors and everything is good with the exposure right out the bat. So I'm just going to put this on this guy's skin. Look, this is a white guy and it still shows up on the same point in my vector scope. So we are good to go. But again, you can really just play around and get creative with the color. So let's move into this other piece of footage that we had earlier. Same thing. This is Sony. Let's add another node. We'll do color space transform like so. This is shot on the Sony. So we're going to do S-Log3 like that. And we want to take this to Rec 709. And the gamma is actually called 2.4 like that. There. Turn that off. Have some fun with it. Bring up the exposure some. A little push, a little pull. Shadows back. Let's play around with this vibrance of it. Look at that. It's so pretty. Yes. Doesn't that look great? If I look at on the RGB parade, waveforms look really, really good. Nice and balanced. Looks great, right? So now let's just add a creative LUT to it. So we'll say right click, LUT, and let's go with Mondo Bytes again. There we go. Looks great. And if I really want to crank that blue, let's go to the highlights here and just really drag that blue like so. And let's put a little warmth in the shadows. So we'll go to the lift and drag that more towards the orange side of things, but just ever so slightly. Good. Yeah, it's good stuff. So now if I turn everything off, let's see. So this is before and this is after. Beautiful, right? Yeah, this is a lot of fun. There's so much more inside of Davinci Resolve that we can play with from a color standpoint. And maybe I'll get into that another day, but I've already been talking to y'all for a very long time on this episode. So I'm not going to take up much more of your time. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and finish this here episode up. Hey, thanks for watching this week's show. I really do appreciate all of the support. I hope this has been helpful for all of you that are trying to dive into the world of video editing and video post-processing. Remember, there's a lot of tools out there. You have the world of Adobe and its Creative Cloud. I am an Adobe affiliate and I still use it. You have Vegas Pro, a very, very solid video editor that's not going to cost you as much as the Adobe package. And then you have Davinci Resolve, which has a free package, but it also has a paid version. I have the paid version of it because there's a few more tools in there that are really, really useful. But yeah, it's really good. Get the free version of Davinci Resolve if you want. Just know that it does not support hardware acceleration, so it might be a touch slower if your processor isn't up to snuff. But yeah, it's a legit product. So check those out: Adobe Premiere Pro, Vegas Pro, and Davinci Resolve. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and send an email to hop@twit.tv. And that's for your questions. That's for your feedback, comments, and so forth. I love hearing from you. I've been getting quite a few messages regarding the Moon Photography Challenge, and we are going to show those different images up really, really soon. So please stay tuned for that. I can't wait to show everybody the images that have been sent. If you catch this before that show, go ahead and send them in now. And if you are cool with me showing your image on the show, make sure you say that in the email and put in the subject line Moon Photography, so it's easy for me to find it in my inbox. Okay. All right. Again, thanks for all the support. Make sure y'all follow me over on Instagram. I'm not even going to ask you to follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram, @_Pruitt over there. Okay. Let's get that follower number up. I really do appreciate that. And please continue to tell folks about the show and give me a nice rating and comment inside of Apple Podcasts. Even if you don't use Apple Podcasts, I appreciate you going over there and rating and commenting on the show anyway. It does mean a lot. Shout out to my man, Mr. Victor, for making me look and sound good as he always does, especially when there's fun edits like this show today and all of the random interruptions that tend to happen here in my studio today. Sorry about that, Mr. Victor. But until next time, folks, safely create and dominate. Y'all take care.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, editor of Ad Astra Magazine, and each week I'm joined by Tarek Malik, the editor-in-chief over at Space.com, in our new This Week in Space podcast. Every Friday, Tarek and I take a deep dive into the stories that define the new space age. What's NASA up to? When will Americans once again set foot on the moon? And how about those samples from the Perseverance rover? When are those coming home? What the heck has Elon Musk done now? In addition to all the latest and greatest in space exploration, we'll take an occasional look at bits of spaceflight history that you probably never heard of, and all with an eye towards having a good time along the way. Check us out on your favorite podcatcher.